too. This Yada 15 nightmare. All right, so what we're gonna be covering today is like I said, Gengar, the terms of agreements, and the 7 terms of agreements that I think that should be discussed for people who are getting into the game or just starting out. Um, 7 are: 1, read unfamiliar cards; 2, appropriate cards and guards; read and remember plays and cards; formulate a play-by-play for the preceding turns; counting cards and triggers, and looking for specific patterns or any type of pattern that you may want to notice about your opponent. And there's always a time and place for everything. So we're gonna go and share our ideas back and forth again, going about what we think about each card. You know, not too much in depth about most things, but since this is a podcast in the God language, we're just going to share our experiences and shit.
All right, so the first terms of agreement, reading unfamiliar cards. All right, so for beginning players, what you have to do is, this is the absolute must, you have to read your cards, read every card on the board, read every rear guard that your opponent has, read everything, every little bit of text on each individual card. If your Vanguard says, when I am called to the when I ride, when I do something, when I am placed on the Vanguard circle, or when I'm placed on the rear guard circle, I do something. You have to pay attention to that specific card. You have to know what that specific card does and how to utilize it to the best of your ability.
What had happened was that a person was using, I forgot what skill they were using, but they are supposed to check the top 3 for a card and then call something, but that didn't happen. They did their drive check and they're like, oh fuck, I forgot, can I do that? I was like, no, that basically fucks up the whole chemistry of the game. And I was like, but it's not like something I can miss, but I have to actually do this. It's like, well, you missed it. So I mean, I'm already committed to guarding. I already put out the 10 gaze. If I take this back, what's in my hand, and I'm not gonna let that fly. I'm not gonna let that happen. That's basically death. Like, you can now calculate how much you can use. How much your power you're gonna need to fight me, and how many cards you're actually gonna get out on our hand if I let you take this back. So no, reading cards is very crucial in turns and games, everything. Yeah, so appropriating cards and guards. When I first started learning about how to play this game, it was at college, and a friend was teaching me. He taught me all sorts of shit. Most of the shit was wrong, but one thing that he did tell me that I do actually agree with is guarding poke attacks. The reason why I say this and why people will be like, no man, you don't guard poke attacks, you let the shit fly, you wait for the Vanguard, you wait for bigger attacks. I say no, only because a simple 5k and a simple 10k or a simple intercept can go a long way. Like, some of these snowball effect damage or snowball damage effects happen when they hit. There's not a lot of effects that will happen just cause, even if they don't hit. Bushiroad made that apparent with the release of some Nova Grappler cards. I'm not sure if Bustard, as what they call them, has to hit or something like that. There's certain Aquaforce cards, there's certain Kagura cards, there's certain Gear Chronicle cards that I play, because I'm a Gear Chronicle and Kagura player at the moment, but mostly a Gear player. I love Gears. But there's a grade 3 that on hit, chooses a unit, and that unit time leaps. And I don't think that unit has to hit. But yeah, appropriating guard for small attacks is it is something that needs to happen more. It's something that I do, and it's profitable because off of the damage check you can get a thing called a defensive trigger. A defensive trigger shuts down most decks that do a bunch of attacks. Like my build of Gear Chronicle that doesn't involve Chrono Jet, because I hate that card, has to do a lot with poking. It does as much attacks as a semi-good Aqua Force play. So I'll be attacking you with 13, 14, 13, 14, 15, 13, 15, 16. I'll be hitting you with like a couple of numbers that are under, 10k guards or under 15k guards, which is a lot actually. But sometimes when you get a defensive trigger, it shuts down most of those plays. But that can only happen. That's only rewarding the fact that you guarded those small attacks, because now they have to put in more oomph to actually put in more damage or get more cards out your hand. So appropriating cards and guards in those instances is a must.
The next thing I want to talk about is appropriate your cards. Appropriating your cards means that you're utilizing the cards that you have in your hand, the rear guards, and your Vanguard to the best of your ability. Each clan plays very differently in Vanguard. Some clans may choose to play aggressively their first couple rides out. They're from grade 1 to grade 2, and then they wait till their limit break on their grade 3 Vanguard, or they do something else where they get to a certain damage point, or when they have enough to make a play, they do something. Alright, some clans may play very defensively. Oh, okay, I don't really have that many rear guards, but for the most part, until I get my optimal play, I'm gonna play this certain way so that my Vanguard gets the best performance, so if you will, and I can be able to get the best play, like I was saying before, out of my Vanguard. I can use my cards to my advantage.
That tucks when your opponent puts opponent's unit at the bottom of their deck. I don't know why that was so difficult to get out, but yeah, on hit, I'm supposed to basically rewind an opponent's unit. Even if they PG, I'm looking for the PG, because nobody really wants their unit put back into the bottom of the deck. Yeah, like Royal Paladin when I used to run Altma heavy, or Gold Paladin as one of our teammates run. Yeah, they may say, yeah, that's a good idea. Put one of my units that I can superior call back into the deck. I mean, buddy, you're only really going to use this card probably once, but I'm going to make it so you can't get to it as fast as you would say that you can. Like, if I'm putting it at the bottom of your deck, yeah, like Royal Paladin can go search that card if it's a grade 2. They can go superior call that card. That's fine. That's only if you hit. If you hit, there's a possibility that I might get a triple crit. Depending on where you're at, that can kill you. That probably will kill you. If you PG it, I'm looking for the PG. I love the PG. That's one less PG that you have. That's one less complete no that you can give me. And how that we have this thing called G Guardians. That's kind of difficult to get off on hit skills, and they can conserve their PGs because the PG is like 2 cards out your hand. That's another card that you could probably use to guard. And if it's a grade 3, that's a card that you can use to strike. Because sometimes I would PG, fucking our Shadow Paladin player. I would PG the shit out of his one of his cards, and then this motherfucker would hit a stand trigger, and now I have to entirely reappropriate or redirect a hit that I just appropriated like a swing or two ago. And I'm like, fuck, wow, that's a lot of shit that I now have to keep in mind. I did not see this coming. But yeah, on hit skills are really good because you never know what else can come. Appropriating this information possibly be tricky from clan to clan to clan, but it still pays off to do this sort of thing.
That means that if your opponent utilizes a certain vanguard or a certain rear guard to attack first, okay, you're gonna take note of that. You're gonna take note of that so that you know that that rear guard is a key component in your opponent's play. Why is that opponent attacking with that certain rear guard? Does that rear guard have an on hit skill? Does that rear guard have a skill where it just needs to attack me and I can counterblast? And it can counterblast to do something? Why is that rear guard or vanguard or certain card important to my opponent's play? You have to also take note of how many cards are in your damage zone, how many cards are in your drop zone, how many cards are in your hand, how many cards are in your opponent's drop zone, how many cards are in your opponent's damage zone, how many cards are in your opponent's hand, what does your opponent have on the board, what do you have on the board, what are your options. What has your opponent drive checked in the last turn or two? What have you drive checked in the last turn or two? That all goes into reading and remembering plays in certain cards that your opponent or you have used. Next,
Redundant. It will behoove you to really research what clan does this and what card is like their featured fucking card. Even what the fuck was that? Even in what's his face? This new what is it? Hoel and Shadow Paladins and Kahadin. That shit is, I mean, you can't really stop the shit because in Shadow Paladins they play shit on their turn. Like it's not, you can't do much unless you're Nubatama and you specifically like make them discard that card, or you make them put all their hand into the bind zone except 2 or 3 cards, and then like you set your play up to drop a card or a couple of cards from the bind zone into the drop zone. That shit right there is kind of like, yeah, that's an instance where you can use this, but for the next go around or for the next turn and shit like that, there's a couple of cards in most clans, and almost every clan now, since that keywords are a thing, that a couple of cards set up their plays. In Gear Chronicle Chronojet variant, Drawn. You have to shut down Drawn. You have to get Drawn off the board as soon as possible. And if you know that they're playing a second Drawn, kill the shit that helps them time leap into a Drawn, like Melum. Melum gets them a grade 0. That's a Drawn. History Maker will attack for that 16 or for however much. Drawn will then go to the bind zone, getting you the grade 1, which will be probably GG. Will net you a card, and then Drawn will go from the bind zone into the soul to get you a Chronojet. That's another column. That's an 18k column after you just took the 16. That's 2 10ks that you gotta spit out. Mind you, that's probably the second column that swung this game, and now you have swung that turn, and now you have a third column, and now you didn't even probably go into the Vanguard. They probably had that Phoenix, Metallica Phoenix, and they probably didn't even use the shit yet. Or if they did, hey, that now you had to PG or a G Guardian, which is a 10k, and you probably have to put out another 10k for a 3 to pass or for a no pass, and then now you have to. That's what if you PG, that's 2 cards. If you G Guardian, that's a 10k gone, and probably another 10k. So let's say UPG, that's 2 cards. Now 10k. If they didn't get triggers miraculously, because when I play Gear Chronicle, I always get at least 1 trigger. So that's probably a 10 to 15k guard, and now you have another 10 to 15k guard, probably a 20k guard, and that's after you either PG'd or G Guardian, which is a 10k and another 10k, or a 10k and a 5k. That's between 90 to just a PG and 60k guard, and that's a lot of cards in hand. That's a lot of cards in hand. So I would say either deal with the problem if you know the clan that you're going up against, if you know what they're capable of, apply pressure or early game, or try to do a little tricks, make them uncomfortable, tilt them, read their plays that they're doing that are not associated with that variant. If like a variant is supposed to, if a variant sets up their plays a certain way, look for what they're not doing at that time, because they might be knowing what you're playing and how what you're playing can counter what they're doing. So they're trying to like work around it, getting a little uncomfortable, make them regret that. And that's all I wanted to really say on that topic. But formulating a play-by-play, I probably led into this. So my formulating a play-by-play for the preceding turn is I use Kung Bao, and Kung Bao's ability is on call to the Vanguard, counterblast to Soul Blast 1, and choose a unit on the board and have that unit gain timely. If this unit were to attack or hit, let me actually search for this card. It should, here it is. Time leave at the end of the battle that this unit attacked the Vanguard. So it does not have to hit, it'll time leave itself. I would actually, on grade 2, throw a grade 2 to the rear guard and the back. So it can't be hit. It could possibly be retired by pinpoint retire. Most clans do that, but that's only on GB, and we're not in GB yet since we're at grade 2. I would throw that in the back and set up for my next turn, because if I know my matchup is probably, I'm only doing that if my matchup is a good one. And when I say a good one, a matchup that one clan can outperform or outmaneuver another clan, and they have an equal, or one clan has a slight advantage than the other. But that's what I do for most clans, against most clans. Since my build, my variant, isn't really good against most clans, it sort of helps out most clans, like Narukami and shit like that. But back on topic, formulating a play-by-play, you have to make split decisions, and you have to understand what you want to do and what they can do to you based off of your moves before you do it. Have anything to add to that, Cohen?
What you're gonna do for each of your following turns. All right, let's say your opponent takes every single card out of your hand, where you're like, oh crap, that was supposed to go to my next play, so I can further my ability to fight my opponent with my Vanguard. I was going to use that as stride fighter, I was going to use that to guard with, or I was going to use that to call to boost my Vanguard to do something. But now that's been taken away from me. That has set me back some. So next, what you want to do is formulate an idea, like reading and remembering plays and cards. What does your opponent have that you don't? How many cards are in your opponent's hand? How many cards are in your opponent's drop zone? How many cards are in your opponent's damage zone? What does your opponent have on the field? What do you have on the field? What can you use to your advantage? That all goes into formulating your next play. What do you have available to use? What have you drawn recently? Next, I'm going to talk about counting cards.
I don't really know what to say about this topic. I kind of don't really know why I wrote it down, because if your opponent has like a certain amount of deck left, just by looking at it, they probably have either a lot of triggers or not a lot of triggers. They can either go one or two ways. So counting triggers isn't really that important, especially not in today's game. I know in my deck it's kind of not a thing, but when I do play Kagero, it's kind of a thing. because I play more draw trigger than anything, so I do need to know how many triggers I have left in the deck. And that's just me, since I'm legally obligated when I want to search things. I can say, oh, I'm searching my deck, or I'm checking my deck while I'm in the deck. Something's allowing me to go into the deck. But when it's to your opponent, you kind of want to always keep in mind what they do and don't have. What they don't have is sometimes more scarier than what they do have, because you can see something unless it has resist and you like thrive off of like touching your opponent's board or touching their, resist doesn't really count on here, but yeah, touching their board and they have resist units and that resist unit is giving you a fucking problem. You might want to kill that shit. You might want to get that shit the fuck out of here. But in the event that you can't, counting their triggers, if they're like Tom, oh my god, I know I'm getting off topic. Fucking Tom. If Tom had resist, he probably would be broken. But the simple fact that he doesn't, you can, Silent Tom, you can fucking kill that thing. Like, you can attack on it. It's only 8k. It gives your Vanguard pressure, and when triggers are added to this guy, it kind of becomes a problem. Looping that back to what I'm saying, triggers, yes, they can be appropriated for like a quick trigger. That's a one and done process. You can like throw out a guard and then that shit is done, right, Cohen? But if it's like a stand trigger on a unit that's giving you a problem, or if there's like multiple triggers on a card that's giving you a problem, that can be negotiated and shit like that. However many triggers they put on that card though, or however many triggers that that they have in hand, also becomes part of the equation of, all right, so I need to take into account what they had and what they don't have. That goes into guarding, that goes into attacking, and that goes into what can and can't die, what I can take and what I can't take. That's what I mean about like counting triggers. It's not just on the defensive aspect, it's on also their offensive aspect. That's all I got for that.
Counting the amount of triggers that you have is very important in this card game called Cardfight Vanguard. In Cardfight Vanguard, triggers and field presence mean everything. Take that with a grain of salt. Triggers and field presence mean everything. Let's say you want to pressure. Let's say you play a clan that utilizes stand triggers like Nova Grappler, Victor. Okay, when one of my rear guards gets back up, I get to stand another one of my rear guards, and the cycle continues. With Nova Grappler specifically, they plus off of stand triggers, but the real threat is what happens when their field presence gets complemented with criticals or more stand triggers off of your Vanguard's drive check. Alright, your opponent may think that, okay, you're playing Nova Grappler, you're only gonna attack them 3 times. No. I'm gonna activate this skill where if I get a stand trigger, oh, guess what? I get to stand up one of my rear guards. I get to do something else. I get to pressure you even more. I get to put you in a predicament where you feel as though that you have less advantage than I do. I'm gonna do what I can with counting my cards and seeing that if say for instance I haven't gotten any triggers in the last 2 turns off of either damage checks or drive checks, that means that probability wise I'm able to take triggers from my deck. No, scratch that. I'm able to say that in the next drive check, I will have a strong probability of getting a trigger, a strong probability of getting a card I want. If I'm over here popping off grade 3s and I only play a total of 8, then I know that I have either, if I count my cards and I realize that, okay, I have a total of 8 grade 2s of my total 10, or of my total grade 2s that I already have out of the deck. Okay, I'm not going to get any more grade 2s. I'm going to get majority grade 1s or triggers, or vice versa. If I have less of something in the deck, then I know that by counting my cards, I can total up how many have been used, how many have not been used, what's in my deck, what's in my field, what's in my drop zone, what can I use to get the utmost advantage. That also goes with counting cards. Next, what I want to focus on is looking for player.
Not that bad, you know. Drago twist, I guess, with that counterblast and kill something that has less power than me, which basically means kill almost anything on the board. That shit is actually, doesn't make you pay attention to the game. But I'm talking about in direct forms. Like, at that moment, it makes me pay attention to the game. Like, a stand trigger, but that's only in most clans. I'm talking about like universally, like a critical trigger and a heal trigger. No matter what clan we're talking about, make sure you pay attention to the game, only because that shit can end, make or break me, end or start something new. Mostly bullshit. So I think that's all I have for that. Moving on, look for patterns. This was covered in reading Remember Plays and Cards, but like remembering certain patterns is actually more important in this sense than remembering some plays and some cards, even though they're both kind of important. I think patterns falls into appropriating cards and guards, and for that I say, if you are looking for patterns, or if you notice a pattern in a card or in a play, it sets up for how can I easily dismantle this, or what's the most optimal usage of cards to dismantle this play, or dismantle this person's sense of security with these X amount of cards that he's using, or X amount of skills. We got to remember that in certain instances, using a counterblast on a card that isn't once per turn can hinder us. So there's a couple of times where you, Cohen, would restand Draco Twist in our later days of play, and you would counterblast and kill something, but you would be close to running out of counterblast. So looking for a pattern, in that sense, I allowed you to constantly do this. I didn't really, even when it was my turn, I didn't really worry about Draco Twist, only because I knew that you was going to burn a card. If I gave you enough problems with one card or two cards, you would use Draco Twist's effect to solve that problem. But yeah, looking for pattern and using them in that way or multiple ways is why I say it's kind of more important than reading or remembering plays that your opponent is doing willingly. Modify my words in that sense. That's all I got.
Players make where they utilize certain units in a special way, where, like for instance, let's say Blue Wave Aqua Force, they specialize in attacking with their rear guards first. Okay, I'm gonna attack you in literally waves. Okay, I'm gonna attack you, retire a unit, or superior call out another unit to attack you again, to attack you again, to attack you again, to pressure you, to make you take the time to guard and lose cards from your hand. I want to take as many cards from your hand with Nova Grappler, with Kagero, with Gear Chronicle, with any clan you play, with any clan you may come across. You take the time to utilize what you have and what you have to the best of your ability. You're looking for player patterns. What are the key components to my opponent's play? That's where formulating your play-by-play comes in handy. What is the key component to my opponent's next play? What cards have they used? What cards are in the drop zone? What cards may be in their hand? What have they revealed off of drive checks? What's in their drop zone? What's on their field? What is important for their next play? If they've used all their counterblasts and their cards are just sitting there, their units are just sitting there, it's not really their cards aren't really on the field, aren't really of utmost importance. Like certain gold paladin players, they call out a unit, that unit does something, and that's it. They sit there. They've accomplished their task. They've finished their goal. You can attack it all you want. They're just gonna call out more units. They're gonna call out more rear guards to fight you on their next turn. They're gonna formulate their next play based on what unit they've used. Now, that also flows into remembering the place and time for every type of play style. There's a way of going about things in Vanguard where you don't really have to play very aggressive offense or very guarded defense. You don't have to play so much defense. If you're just beginning the game and your deck doesn't specialize in having a ton of damage, then you can afford to take those 2 hits, because in most cases the real Vanguard, the match doesn't really begin until mid-game. In my opinion, the match doesn't begin until either player hits 2 or 3 damage, or either player rides a grade 2 or rides a grade 3 or strides. That's what I call mid-game. Like I said, there's a time and place for everything, where you don't have to sacrifice as many cards if you know your opponent. If you know your opponent's gonna stride next turn, where you could utilize, you could take a couple hits if their field presence isn't insane, like they're playing Gear Chronicle, which time leaps, or they're playing Nova Grappler, which they can restand their units, or they're playing Blue Wave, which aren't with, or certain cards where Blue Wave, Aqua Force, where they're playing certain cards that utilize in either on-hit skills or when they just attack the Vanguard in general. So there's a time and place for everything. There's a time and place to choose when to guard or when not to guard. There's a time and place to retire a unit. There's also a time and place to when to pressure your opponent into giving up cards, because you want them to lose, if not all of the cards, some if not all of the cards in their hand, so you can be on top, so you can take over, tilt the game in your favor, so to speak, like Yada was saying.
Yeah, you're right, actually. That opinion, that opinion actually is really correct. Oh man, looking at my trades, I forgot to tap this shit off. Moving on to time and place of everything. Timing and placing for everything is very key, and I can only say that it varies with each person. even if they're playing the same deck, the same clan, the same sub clan. Actually, it varies. And I like when it does vary, but then again, I don't like uh I don't like how, what's the best way to say this? I don't like how it doesn't work for every every variant of that same subclan, or for every Gear Chronicle player who plays Chrono Jet variant. I don't like how this play work doesn't hinder them like it did the other person. And I do totally understand. I had to grow up a little bit, and I do totally understand why that is not the case, because uh, is a different. Every person has a different ingredient that goes into their decks, and every person, shocking as to sound, isn't the same. Even if they're playing like net deck, they can see potential in an undeveloped card, not a bad card, but in an undeveloped card that every person may play, like Gigi, a person that we both mutually know, Cohen, that goes to our locals. He plays Gear Chronicle too. He's younger. Um, he now focuses on using the time leap variant and certain cards that people don't use, that I've noticed, to get more soul and to get bigger columns. All the Gear Chronicle players focus on next stage, next stage, next stage, next stage, yada da next stage, and the Chrono Jet, da 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 next stage, Chrono Jet, da da next stage, Chrono Jet. That's all they worry about. This guy does use next stage and Chrono Jet, but wow, holy shit! Now I don't really just have to worry about Chrono Jet. I mean, next stage, I can PG next stage all day long. I don't really need to worry about Chrono Jet. I need to also worry about his fucking rear guard. His fucking rear guards are now 21s, 23s, 25s each. That's 15k guard. Bro, I just blew 2 cards on a triple drop. Holy shit. Chrono Jet, consistently now gets to 28. And I'm like, bro, how is Chrono Jet so fucking strong? He's like, yo, well, I gave almost all my power to my booster, and I have heart thumps and shit like that. And it was very interesting to see how our third time undefeated Gear Chronicle player on our team, who is his mentor, the guy who's making the huge columns and he is the underling for our other Gear Chronicle player. It's funny how our Gear Chronicle player who's went undefeated in some events, or who's doing good, plays completely different, has a completely different outlook on how he plays his deck. Yes, he's very versatile at grade 2 and grade 3, but when it comes to a fucking play after Metallica Phoenix, it's next stage, but it's very upfront. Maybe because the tournament scene has changed his thought on how to play a person. Maybe it dulled his senses in how to feel the person out to destroy them based off of what they do and their chemistry. I think that he's not attacking the vital organs. He's just hitting very hard in vital spots. And how I mean is, like, he turned, next stage. He turned Chrono Jet next stage from a very accurate tool of fighting somebody, like throwing knives, to throwing very large hammers or blasting cannons from, using a sniper rifle. He'll use Chrono Jet, next stage, and then go into Chrono Jet. His rear guard is already attacked, so now all I really need to worry about is this 16, this 21 Chrono Jet. And I'm baffled at how they're playing the same deck with the same focus, but they go about this focus in different lenses. And I know I used a lot of metaphors, but it's just how different the time and placing for everything against every person is so different, even if they're playing similar things. I like this about the game. Then again, it's so fucking frustrating. Now I have to completely appropriate on new terms of play with this person. Oh god. But do you have anything? Yeah, man. Time and placing for everything. For each person, it's different. Even if they're playing with similar cards, it's kind of ridiculous how much prepping and how much thought process it takes for each turn because the tides of fighting in Vanguard can change with a damage check, with a trigger on the drive check, with a rear guard dying, even if you did or didn't want to, like, shit can change even. But yeah, that's all I got for that. Thank you for your time. This is Yada and Cohen from Team Nightmare, and we'll be coming back at you.